Studios in San Diego, California. This is Frank Fired Up here on the Mix Up Sports Network, coming at you live here on this Wednesday. It is the 28th day of September, a couple minutes past the 5 o'clock hour here as we get towards the end of the baseball season. Just 4 games remaining for the New York Metropolitans, who kicked it into gear last night with a W against the Miami Marlins, as you probably would have expected, especially with Noah Syndergaard on the mound, which we'll get to more of that in just a moment. The New York Yankees breaking the 11-game winning streak currently held by it was formerly held by the Boston Red Sox, as the Yankees just make it a little bit tougher for Boston to win home field advantage throughout. A wild card game with wild card implications live now between Seattle and Houston. That game pretty well in hand right now. Also, injury definitely is the word of the day in the NFL, as 2 players over the last 2 days have gone down with injury, one of them possibly for the season. But we will begin today with the New York Mets, and I'll get this out of the way. I'll get this out of the way now because I really don't want to discuss it. Tim Tebow played in his first instructional league game of his career today. First at bat, first pitch, 2-run home run. So there you go. I mentioned it. But getting to a Met game that actually mattered last night, that would have been the game down in Miami, where the Mets now 10 games over 500 at 84 and 74. Now with 4 games left, they're going to have to sit painfully and watch on Thursday. Watch on Thursday as the Giants and the Cardinals both pick up that game that they have in hand on the New York Mets, with the Mets currently sitting at half a game over the Giants and currently a game and a half over the St. Louis Cardinals. All 3 teams winning last night, all 3 teams scoring 12 runs. Mets win 12-1, Giants won 12-3, Cardinals won 12-5. So you had all of the teams that are in the hunt right now win and win big. Last night was a showing of the Mets just getting down to business, as Cespedes homers, Jay Bruce hits his 31st home run of the year. It looked as though it could have gotten away from the Mets early with Marcelo Zuna. His RBI single in the first inning. You're thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to happen again. But immediately Jay Bruce comes back in the second inning, and then Yoenis Cespedes in the third. So the Mets have 2 30-home run hitters. Then the Mets just add on in the 8th inning. Granderson with a 2 RBI single, Duda with a bases clearing double, and add on just a little bit more in the 9th inning as Conforto with an RBI base hit, Granderson an RBI double, and Lagares with a sacrifice fly in the 9th inning to get the Mets their 12. But you look at this team and you look at what you saw last night, not counting Monday, because I'm not going to count Monday because Monday was a handover game if I ever saw one. I have not seen Bartolo Colon pitch that poorly in a Met uniform. That was a handover game. That was a let's make the Marlins feel good, let's give them something to cheer about, which I have no problem with. But over these last 3 games that the Mets have played, excluding Monday, the Mets have scored 32 runs in the last 3 games, excluding Monday. That is a lot of runs in a short amount of time, and it is because this team is doing something that we have constantly ripped them on of not doing all season. They are hitting. They are hitting with runners in scoring position. They are hitting for average, along with hitting for power. They're getting great pitching, not only from Cologne and Syndergaard, but from, as Gary Cohen coined them, the emergency brigade of Lugo, Gesellman, Yona. I mean, those guys. Those guys have really picked it up, have really stepped it up for the Mets coming down the run here. And this was supposed to be a team. This was supposed to be a pitching rotation that was supposed to be deadly. Instead, you have Harvey go out. You have an unknown thing ailing DeGrom all season long, who has had surgery to replace it. You now have both Syndergaard and Matz with bone spurs. Matz, his season is done. He just had surgery to replace the bone spurs, to remove the bone spurs. And you know Syndergaard is going to have those bone spurs removed during the offseason. Syndergaard has lasted. Cologne has not missed a start this year from what I can remember. They have played, and Gesellman has proved to be a fantastic, fantastic pitcher. And to be perfectly honest, it's a shame that the Mets may have to keep him down in the minor leagues next year. Because if you expect all of your starting pitchers back healthy, now this is the second year Wheeler has missed coming off of Tommy John surgery. Syndergaard should be better with the bone spurs. Matt should be better with the bone spurs. DeGrom should be coming back, and so should Harvey. So with all of those guys coming back, there's going to be no room for Gesellman, which is unfortunate because he's pitched incredibly well. And Seth Lugo, who has pitched incredibly well, who starts tonight. But if you look at the team, again, 32 runs over the last 3 games, excluding Monday. It was that 10-8 loss Saturday night, the 17-0 win on Sunday, and then the 12-1 win yesterday. They had a bad game on Saturday night beyond, and that is because, well, you had a starting pitcher out there who is not used to starting in Sean Gilmartin. And then the day before that, they scored 10, and then the day before that, they scored 9. So over the last 5 games, what is that, 41 runs over the last 5 games, excluding Monday? That's a lot of runs. That is a ton of runs. They did not score less than 8 against the Phillies that entire home series. And they get to play the Phillies one more time after tonight. But tonight they play the Marlins. They close that series out, and with Syndergaard pitching yesterday, pitched fantastically yesterday. This is going to be the last time that we talk about the Mets. Well, tomorrow. Well, actually, it'll be more or less today, because tomorrow you have the football day tomorrow. This is really going to be the last chance we get to talk Mets baseball before either the playoffs or before their season ends. And with Syndergaard pitching last night, his next time through in the rotation would be the 1-game playoff if the Mets were to make it. Here's my issue with the one-game playoff. You have two pitchers that I would say are more than capable of pitching in that one-game playoff. You have Syndergaard and you have Cologne. You have the popular choice, which is Syndergaard, but then you have the correct choice, which is Bartolo Colon. If I were running this team, Bartolo Colon would be pitching on an extra day's rest. He would be pitching that one-game playoff. And the reason why is because I have to go into that one-game playoff against San Francisco, which, let's be honest, the Mets can beat San Francisco. The Mets have shown this year that they are more than capable of beating San Francisco. Now, last month they split in San Francisco, but the Mets were not at their best last month. Take it all the way back to the end of April and the beginning of May, where the Mets took 2 out of 3 at Citi Field. The Mets can beat San Francisco, especially because the Giants are 4-6 in their last 10. And they play the Colorado Rockies again tonight. The Mets can beat the Giants. They can beat St. Louis. We've seen, again, this year, same situation. We have seen that the Mets can beat St. Louis. Go to July. Mets lost 2 out of 3 at home, but at the end of July, it was a very, very tough time for the Mets, as we know. Then you take it last month, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of last month, where they took 2 out of 3 from St. Louis. So the Mets can beat the Cardinals. They can beat the Giants. They've done it this year. I have to go into that game with the mindset of we are winning this game, no doubt about it. And if you take that mindset into that game, your next thought would be, I want my best pitcher up against the best team in the league in the Cubs. I want Noah Syndergaard starting the first game of the NLDS against the Cubs. And I understand I understand the other side of the argument. It's a one-game playoff. There's no guarantee you're going to win it. I want Syndergaard on the mound to get the job done. I understand that side of it. But you have to look at it this way. Bartolo Colon is more than capable of winning a one-game playoff. Don't be put off by Monday. Don't be put off by Monday. Bartolo Colon is more than capable of winning a one-game playoff. I want Colon in that spot. Now, the only question is, who is going to be your Game 2 starter in the NLDS? Do you pitch Colon on short rest, or do you run the risk, if you lose Game 1, do you run the risk of going back 2 games to nothing, going into your home ballpark by throwing Gesellman in Game 2? Because you have to think, with the way Gesellman has pitched over this last month or month and a half, the way Gesellman has pitched, he has earned that third starter spot in the NLDS. You know Syndergaard's getting 2, and you know Bartolo Colon is pitching in the NLDS. The question is, does he pitch 2 games? Does he pitch 2 and 5? Or does he pitch 3? If you start Syndergaard for the NLDS, you have him for 1 and 4. He's pitched 2 games in a postseason before. He's no stranger to that. He did it last year. My money says Bartolo Colon pitches the 1 game playoff. He almost has to. He'll be pitching on an extra day or two's rest, and it gives you the option to pitch Syndergaard twice and first in the NLDS. If you do not pitch, if you pitch Syndergaard in the 1 game playoff, congratulations, you may have won the 1 game playoff. But now you are either now you're running the risk of either having him only throw once and then pitching Gazelman twice, or having him pitch twice, both times on short rest. It makes no. That's the only way that makes sense, is for Bartolo Colon to pitch the 1 game playoff. And I'm sure as this weekend develops, if one of those two pitches in Philadelphia, you know they're not pitching the 1 game playoff. You know they're not pitching the 1 game playoff if they pitch in Philadelphia. So the Mets are going to have to find, because Colon is scheduled to pitch the last game of the season. If they throw somebody in for a spot start, maybe they bring Rafael Montero back up, even though they really shouldn't. Throw Gil Martin up there, which they really shouldn't. Maybe you throw Yona in the rotation for 1 go. That's probably the best option. If they pitch one of them, they're not pitching in the DS, in the 1 game playoff. We could talk about the NLDS a little bit more if the Mets make it out of the wild card. I understand the other side of it. If you're going to go down, you want to go down with your best pitcher, and that is, without a doubt, Noah Syndergaard. You can pitch Syndergaard maybe an inning or two out of the bullpen, and knowing that kid, he will be raring to go for game 1 of the NLDS. He will be ready and raring to go against the Cubs, who the Mets took 5 out of 7 against this year. And you saw what they did to them in the NLCS last year, but this is a very, very different Cubs team from what the Mets saw last year in playoff time. This is a Cubs team that is riding sky high off of history. And they are going to be very, very tough to beat. The question is, can Cologne beat San Francisco? Yes. Can Cologne beat St. Louis? Yes. Do you want Syndergaard to pitch twice in the NLDS if they win the wild card game? Yes. Then there is no other answer than to pitch Bartolo Colon in the wild card game. Back after this. All right, we're back. Listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mix Up Sports Network. Didn't have the show yesterday, but I was on yesterday. I was on TNT with Krusha. Had a lot of fun with that. That was the first time I think that we had been together in about a month and a half. So after I started school and after Nick went off to BYU, um, it's been kind of difficult for us to link up and get together, but we've been doing the shows. We've been doing our shows, trying to get them out for you guys, and um, me and him were finally able to link up again, and it was a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll get a Mix Up Sports Live done on Monday, next Monday. But that and hopefully soon I can get him onto this show. But yeah, if you hadn't listened to that, the date's wrong. It says Tuesday, September 26th. It's supposed to be the 27th. But if you didn't listen to that, we had a lot of fun doing the show, having a lot of fun messing around with each other. Um, Yesterday, you can listen to it. You can find it in our archives on the YouTube channel, which you're on. So if you don't know the YouTube channel, just click our name under the screen there, and it'll bring you right to it. So yeah, had a lot of fun with that yesterday, but I'm sure he did not have fun with what happened last night, as the New York Yankees ended up breaking the Red Sox 11-game winning streak, as the Yankees come away with a 6-4 victory at Yankee Stadium. Uh, that will put them now 5 games over 500. They cannot finish under 500 this year. So the Yankees have at least clinched that for themselves as this season winds down. It looks has all the looks of us doing a post-mortem on the Yankees 2016 season on Monday. But beyond that, the Yankees cannot finish below 500 at this point. They're going to have to try. They're going to have to try pretty doggone hard in order to finish below 500. Actually, they need one win. Pardon me, they're 81-76. So they need one win to ensure that they will not finish below 500. Game that just finished today, the Houston Astros losing to the Seattle Mariners by a score of 12-4. That is going to put a serious damper on Houston's chances. They are all but eliminated now. Toronto has a 2-game lead over Baltimore, but Baltimore only has a 1-game lead over Detroit, and now a 1.5-game lead over Seattle. They play Toronto tonight. Toronto did beat Baltimore, so if Baltimore does so happen to lose again tonight and Detroit wins against Cleveland, which they did last night 12-0, if Detroit were to win again tonight, that would put Detroit, I believe, into the second wild card spot. So the American League wild card race, not as close as the National League, but it is still very, very tight between the teams. There are now 4 teams in the race. Toronto has separated themselves a little bit, especially now they're playing Baltimore. They have a chance to really separate themselves away from the pack. The Yankees are eliminated. It looks as though Houston may have just eliminated themselves here today with a loss. So now it's Seattle, Detroit, Baltimore, and Toronto that are in the wild card race for the American League, and and Detroit could, with a win and a Baltimore loss, could put themselves into that spot. For Baltimore tonight, they will throw up Tillman. Tillman 16-6 with a 3.84 ERA. They will go up against Liriano for Toronto. Lineups on that game. Let's see. Pressed the wrong button there. Um, so so again, very very tight races. Baltimore, Toronto, I think can actually. I think if Toronto wins, something's telling me the way I'm looking at the math here, Toronto can actually clinch a wild card spot with a win tonight. So if Toronto wins, they put themselves 3 games over. They put themselves 3 games over Baltimore with 4 to play. It doesn't. I believe it will lock them in to that wild card spot. Um, Again, it'll be Chris Tillman going for Baltimore. So if there's ever a starter that the Baltimore Orioles need on the mound, it is this guy for tonight. He will go up against Francisco Liriano. The lineups are out for Baltimore. It'll be Adam Jones, Chris Davis, Manny Machado, Mark Trumbo, Trey Mancini, Matt Wieters, J.J. Hardy, Jonathan Shoup, and Nolan Raymold ahead of Chris Tillman for Baltimore. For Toronto, it'll be Ezekiel Carrera, Josh Donaldson, Edwin Encarnacion, Jose Bautista, Russell Martin, Troy Tulowitzki, Michael Saunders, Kevin Pillar, and Ryan Goins ahead of Francisco Liriano. Now, the other side of that chase is Detroit and Cleveland. Cleveland has already clinched the division, but again, Detroit is only 1 game out, and they put a hurtin' on the Cleveland Indians last night. The Indians will throw out Zach McAllister, who's 3-2 with a 3.58 ERA. He's worked out of the bullpen most of this year, but he'll make his second start of the season to pitch a couple of innings. He tossed 2/3 of an inning on Sunday against the White Sox, so expect the Detroit Tigers to see a lot of the Indians bullpen this evening. The Tigers will throw up Michael Fulmer. He is 11-7 on the year with a 2.95 ERA rather. Barring a tiebreaker, Fulmer will pitch. This will be his final game of the regular season this evening. For the Cleveland Indians, it'll be Rajai Davis, Jason Kipnis, Francisco Liriano, Carlos Santana, Jose Ramirez, Lonnie Chisenhall, Coco Crisp, Tyler McQuinn, and Roberto Perez ahead of Zach McAllister this evening. For the Detroit Tigers, Ian Kinsler, Cameron Maben, Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez, J.D. Martinez, Justin Upton, Nick Castellanos, James McCann, and Jose Iglesias ahead of Michael Fulmer this evening for the Detroit Tigers. Again, Seattle beating Houston 12-4 this afternoon. Robinson Cano with a 3-run home run in that game. He brings them up to 97 RBIs and I believe 36 home runs on the year. Getting back to local now, the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. It'll be Clay Buchholz taking on Brian Mitchell. This evening for the Red Sox, it'll be Dustin Pedroia, Xander Bogaerts, David Ortiz, Mookie Betts, Hanley Ramirez, Jackie Bradley Jr., Brock Holt, Andrew Benintendi, and Sandy Leon going for the Red Sox this evening. For the Yankees, it'll be Brett Gardner, Jacoby Ellsbury, Gary Sanchez, Brian McCann, Starlin Castro, Didi Gregorius, Mark Teixeira, Chase Headley, and Mason Williams will get the start in right field tonight ahead of Brian Mitchell. Now, Williams has played a couple games this year. He does have 2 RBIs on the year, nothing much beyond that for the Yankees. But this is you can call it a must-win game for the Yankees, but really a must-win for the Yankees is there's really nothing. There's really nothing the Yankees can do this evening to keep their playoff hopes alive. A win will definitely keep their playoff hopes alive, but they're going to have to win out and pretty much hope that Detroit, Baltimore, and the two teams ahead and the three teams ahead of them win, lose the rest of the year. And with Seattle playing Houston, you know that's not a possibility. For the Mets this evening, it'll be Seth Lugo going tonight. For the Metropolitans, 4-2 record with a 2.61 ERA. For Miami, it'll be Jose Urena going for the Marlins this evening, 4-8 with a 5.95 ERA. Since tossing 8 2/3 shutout innings on September 11th in a win over the Dodgers, Urena has struggled in each of his last two starts, giving up 12 earned runs over 5 innings. So he has had some serious troubles as of late. The lineups this evening will be Jose Reyes as Drupal Cabrera, Yoenis Cespedes, Curtis Granderson, Jay Bruce, TJ Rivera, Lucas Duda, Rene Rivera, and Seth Lugo for the Mets. Expect that to be more of a playoff look-alike roster for them. Maybe put Duda sixth, or maybe put Duda sixth, and Darno seventh, and then have TJ Rivera bat eighth. Who knows? But that looks as though that will be the playoff roster for the Mets this season. For the Miami Marlins, it'll be D. Gordon, Marcelo Zuna, Martin Prado, Christian Yelich, Giancarlo Stanton, Justin Bour, who has destroyed the Mets this series, Jeff Mathis, Adeiny Hechavarria, and Jose Urena going for the Miami Marlins this evening. We'll talk NFL, more specifically NFL injuries, when we return, and we'll also take a very, very quick look at the game tomorrow night. We'll be right back. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network. All right, we're back, and if you don't think Rex Ryan is in Rex Ryan form already, we have a little bit of an audio clip here from the Buffalo Bills Twitter page. This was taken, I assume, by one of their media relations people at their press conference today. Um, Essentially, what happened is Rex Ryan essentially either tapped into a um, a conference call with the New England Patriots, or something happened that and Rex Ryan ended up talking to Julian Edelman. Um, he said he was well. You'll hear it. You'll hear it right now. Here it is.
Julian, this is Walt Patulski from the Buffalo News. Are you playing quarterback this week?
Huh?
Are you playing quarterback this week?
Well, I'm going to do whatever the coach is asking me to do. So, if they ask me to go out and give a glass of water to someone on the sideline, I'm going to do that with a smile on my face to help our team win. So, you can ask Coach that one.
All right, Julian, I will, buddy.
So Rex is already at it with his antics this week against the New England Patriots. Sorry for the cutout there. With our broadcasting system up and running, it's kind of it takes away from the speed of the buffering a little bit. But yeah, that was if you couldn't hear what Edelman was saying. Essentially, Edelman was saying that I'll do whatever the coach to do. It doesn't matter if they ask me to do something as mundane as get a glass of water for somebody, then he'll do it. So, but yeah, that was Rex Ryan as Walt Lutsky. Is that the name he used? But yeah, so that was that today. Rex Ryan being his normal goof of a self. But we get now to the injuries taking place around the NFL. Again, and there has been a lot of them over these last couple days, especially. We know about Manti Te'o, which we said yesterday on TNT, but there were more that were announced yesterday after we went off air on TNT, and then more announced even today that J.J. Watt now is possibly done for the year. He has re-injured his back. He missed the entire preseason, undergoing a surgery to repair a herniated disc in late July. The latest setback could end his season, so it looks as though J.J. Watt will miss the rest of the season with the back injury. He has been placed on IR. We don't know yet whether or not he was placed on season-ending IR or just IR. But beyond that, he's definitely going to miss a lot of time, and in fact could miss the rest of the season with this back injury. Also, Des Bryant has been found to have an injury. He has a hairline fracture in his knee, a slight hairline fracture in his injured right knee. Bryant went down awkwardly in the first quarter Sunday night against the Bears, but he came back to finish the game. He caught his first touchdown pass of the season on a footwork-heavy double move that seemed to show his knee was in perfect nick. Garrett described Bryant's condition as, quote, day-to-day or week-to-week. Bryant did not practice today. Per NFL Network insider Ian Rapport, Bryant could play this weekend against the 49ers, but he could also miss 3 weeks depending upon how he responds to the treatment. He was seen today at the Dallas practice field on crutches today. So they're saying it could be a day-to-day situation. They're saying it could be a week-to-week situation. They're also saying he could be out for 3 weeks. So nobody really knows what is going on with Des Bryant right now, but they know the injury. Really, it comes down to how he responds, how his body responds to the treatment that he is going to get for that knee, and I am sure he will. He will. I would assume he would seek some more medical attention on that knee as the season ends. But coming to New York now, the Jets suffered 2 injuries out of that Kansas City game. Eric Decker has a shoulder injury, and apparently Darrelle Revis has an ankle injury. 3 separate Jets suffered shoulder injuries in their 24-3 loss to the Chiefs. Most notably, Eric Decker. Decker did not practice Wednesday, will likely get an MRI. Decker aggravated the injury on Sunday after practicing in limited fashion last week. Defensive lineman Lawrence Thomas and return specialist Jalen Marshall, who fumbled away 7 points, both suffered torn labrums and will miss, quote, a couple of weeks. Bulls also added that veteran cornerback Darrelle Revis suffered an ankle injury Wednesday and did not practice. The coach did clarify there's, quote, not much concern, but an injury involving an aging Revis needs to be discussed and dissected at this point of his career. The injuries to veterans, major or minor, are the last thing this 1-2 Jets team needs as it heads into a brutal 3-game stretch against Seattle, Pittsburgh, and Arizona. That game against Arizona I don't think is going to be as brutal as you think it is. Arizona, we mentioned it on TNT yesterday, has not been good this year, or has not been the Arizona team that you would have expected it to be. They have underperformed. They have underachieved. They lost a game on a field goal to New England Patriots in a game that a field goal never should have been the deciding factor. Then they go out the next week and beat down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 40-7, and then they just had a poor showing this week. There's really nothing else. There's really no other way to describe it other than a very, very poor showing this past week. And now they head into a week, speaking of Arizona, now they head into a week where they are playing the LA Rams, who are 2-1. They've already beaten Seattle this year. This is going to be a very, very this has the potential of being a very, very difficult divisional game for them. Looking to the Jets, you're playing Seattle, but if you look at the Seattle team that they're playing, okay, this is a Seattle team that had a close victory in Game 1, lost 9-3 in Game 2 against the Rams, and then had Russell Wilson injured in Game 3 and may not be available for this game against the Jets. So when you look at the Seattle team, you're looking at the possibility of seeing a backup quarterback come into New York, which makes that Seattle Seahawks team look a lot less dangerous. And then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who will see how they play on Sunday night against the Kansas City Chiefs to find out whether or not they're going to be dangerous or not. That first game was solid. The second game against Cincinnati was a blowout. And then they had a bad game against the Philadelphia Eagles last week. And then in all of this, you have the Giants, who are starting a brutal stretch of their own, playing the Minnesota Vikings on Monday night, 3-0. Then the Green Bay Packers, 2-1. That's going to be a tough team no matter who you. That's going to be a tough team no matter who you are, because you're going to have to face Aaron Rodgers either way. Then you face in Lambeau. Then you have Baltimore, who is a tough team on paper. the LA Rams, who just finished another beatdown, and again have beaten Seattle. Then you play Philadelphia. Then you have a bye week 8, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, before you finally get a break playing Chicago. So these next 6 games are going to be very, very tough for the Giants. Fortunately for them, 4 of these 6 are going to be in New York. 4 of the 6 are going to be in New York. 4 of the 6 are also going to be on the NFL Network. 3 of the 6 are prime. 4 of the 6 are going to be on national television. 3 of the 6 are going to be prime time. The game against Minnesota, week 4 against this week against Minnesota is Monday night. Next week is Sunday night at Lambeau, and then week 7 is in London, and then week 10 against Cincinnati at MetLife is on ESPN. Monday night. So the Giants are entering a very, very tough stretch of their own in this. So the Jets are entering a tough 3-game stretch, not as tough as it looks. And you can almost say the same thing about the Giants. Especially because you're playing the Packers, who have not played up to their potential this year. You're playing the Rams, who